So good morning, Coalition. It's great to see everybody today. Here in Greensboro, it's a fairly sunny morning, so that's a good thing. And we have a wonderful interview with Julia Adams-Scheurich this morning, and it's going to be a great time. But first, let's let Allison give us a little update on what's going on with the North Carolina Serious Illness Coalition, and then we'll ask you all to sign in, please, in the chat and give your organization. Allison.
Hi, everyone. Good morning and happy Friday. I just have a couple of announcements for you this morning. The first announcement that I have is just a reminder that the next full coalition meeting will be next Friday, June 18th at 10 a.m. So again, just a reminder, all meetings are the third Fridays of the month. If you need the calendar invite resent to you, please send me an email after this meeting and I will connect you with the right information. Another update that I have for you, if you were not able to attend the May meeting, we had a wonderful presentation from Jay Kumar from Chi-Squared, that's the Carolinas Health Innovations Institute. That recording is now available on our website if you've missed it. So go to the Insights page on our website or feel free to check your member email to watch a recording of that presentation. And then the last update that I have for you is just a reminder, we do have our clinical practice forum at the end of this month. Clinical practice forums are held on the fourth Friday of the month, with the next one being June 25th. And this is surrounding ethics communication regarding serious illness. So this features two of our coalition members, Deborah Love and John Moscott. So please join us for that. I will put the flyer in the chat so you can register during the interview. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Catherine's name in there. So Julia Adams-Scheurich, you are an amazing lady, and you're currently the Senior Vice President at AHC, the Association for Home Health and Hospice in North Carolina. And are you also, I know it's a two-state organization, are you working in both states?
Yes, thank you. I am the Vice President of Government Relations for both North Carolina and South Carolina. So for our AHC and for our South Carolina, our sister over there. So yeah, I work in both states now.
Great. Well, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
And that's a fairly new position, but we'll get to that in a moment. So first of all, I'm excited to ask you about some of your growing up days. So tell us, please, about where you're from, what you did early on, some of your story, if you don't mind.
Of course. So some of you, Mary, I think you've heard a lot of this before. So she can fact check me later. But so my name is Julia, and I was actually born in Brentwood, Long Island, New York. So I am a transplant. And my story actually begins in a very unique way. And I'm going to be really super honest about all of this. So my mother and my father were best friends all growing up. My mother was a nun for 13 years, left the convent and married my father. And my background with all of this stems directly from my mom and dad. So my father was an individual, wonderful man, great talents, incredible singer, loved the theater. But my father also dealt with significant, profound mental illness his entire life. And my mother also had an experience with her oldest sister, who also had severe mental illness her entire life. And so if we look back at the roots of how I became an advocate, I would have to say I became an advocate when I was born. It was sort of a path that was laid out for me because it was in my family. My father also and my mother both have genetic conditions. My mother has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which I also have. And my father had Marfan syndrome, which is our sister genetic condition. So genetically, I was going to end up with a rare condition. There was just absolutely no way to get around that. Genes are who you are, and your life experience is what builds you. And so when I was, I guess, in elementary school, my father had his first mental health breakdown and spent several days in what we would consider a Holly Hill now. And when he came home, our life dramatically shifted. So my father and mother retired early, moved us to Florida, Floral City, Florida. If you've never heard of it, don't feel bad. It is a registered historic ghost town in the middle of Citrus County. The only thing we can claim is that we also share that county with the beautiful manatees that are protected by the state of Florida. Aside from that, if you came to my mom and dad's house back then when I was in high school and early college, what you would find is an acre of land surrounded by the Withlacoochee State Forest, some really pretty cows, and a whole lot of strawberries and oranges. And that's about it. And so my father and mother both continued to struggle with their individual disabilities their entire life until they passed away. My father committed suicide in 2005. And so that has informed my trajectory and my path ever since then. So that's kind of my, when you look at where you are today, you got to look at where you were and what happened. And so a large portion of who I am and what I do and what I'm passionate about is my mom and dad. I'm also a person with a disability. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, hypermobility, or HEDS, obviously, since I was born. We found out the first diagnosis when I was 16, and we got the official, what I call ICD-10 tag, when I was 30 years old at UNC Chapel Hill Hospital, so go UNC Genetics. And all of my care is under Duke now, go Duke. So all of my advocacy starts with my genes.
Wow. What a story, man. Thank you so much for being just so honest about all that. And I know it's what you do, but as we said earlier, you have a choice. You don't always have to tell your story and be so upfront. So I think many of us appreciate that. And working in the serious illness world, we've got a lot of stories, but it's a challenge. And being able to be open about how we've grown up and the situations that we're in and the situations we find ourselves is unique. So thank you.
Sure.
So you've taken us to Florida. So take us a little bit farther, Julia. How'd you get from Florida to North Carolina?
So my mother would tell you that I joined the circus. That's not what I did. So I had not even envisioned a career where I would be in politics or advocacy. I actually have my roots in theater and film. And so I worked, my first college education was in the arts, in theater arts as a stage manager. And I was offered an opportunity to come to North Carolina to do 2 films as a production assistant. And once I got here, I never left. And so I stayed here. The industry obviously had its downturn. And so I went into teaching. I was a Montessori teacher for many years, actually 4 years. So I had all these variances of careers, as all of us do. I'm sure if we looked at our resumes now, it's like a patchwork on mine. But in 1996, when I turned 30 and was diagnosed with my condition, I actually took all of my art experience, all my theater experience, and that was my first advocacy work. I can tell you more about that. So I worked with, I met Ron Mace. How many of us know Ron Mace or have known of Ron Mace? Ron Mace is an individual who was post-polio, had polio as a child. He was the first student at NC State University to graduate from the university using a wheelchair. He also was one of the pioneers for integrating elementary and middle school and high school. His mother was a force to be reckoned with. And Ron Mace lived in Raleigh and is one of the fathers of universal design, which I met him and he became my mentor for the last 3 years of his life. And then, as you can see, I talk a lot. And the way I ended up going professional on this is I said, depending on who you are, the wrong thing or the right thing to a Senate candidate in 2004 and moved from theater advocacy into political advocacy and have never left.
I want to know what you said.
Sure. So I'm also hard of hearing because I'm hard of hearing because of my Ehlers-Danlos, so I have a hearing loss in the lower registers. But I was at Wilson. You're going to love this story. I was at Wilson Tech Community College learning American Sign Language, which is my second language. And Erskine Bowles' U.S. Senate campaign came to Wilson Tech Community College in 2004 to talk about jobs. And they didn't bring a sign language interpreter. And I got to tell you, here's how naive I was. I didn't know who Erskine Bowles was. I had no clue. All I knew as a self-advocate was that a person came to my school in a deaf community and didn't bring a sign language interpreter. So I rolled up to his campaign manager and I said, do you guys not do advanced teams? Because I used to work in theater and film and we always do advance. And if you had done your advanced homework, you would have known that this was a school next to a deaf school in a deaf community with sign language interpreter students. And maybe you should have brought an interpreter as opposed to using ours. I'm just saying. And the candidate overheard what I was saying and asked me if I would email him all of my concerns, which was really a bad idea on his part, about integration and accessibility. And so I did. And I got home to my husband, my first husband, and I walked in the door and I was kind of cracking up laughing about it. And he said to me, what happened? And I told him, I was like, they were just off their game. They didn't bring anybody. And I just want you to know that that's bad. And Erskine offered me a job that day. And then I found out that he had been chief of staff for the president. And I never turned back. He got me into college. He helped me get my degree. And that landed my first job with the ARC in North Carolina as their director of government relations. So,
well, that's an amazing story. So it turns out that he was smarter than it seemed like he might have been at first. But
he would like to take credit for everything, and I give him credit fully.
Yeah, well, he was very smart to hire you, that's for sure. That's great. So you've been in politics, advocacy. So just give us a snippet of how that progressed from there. So you worked for Erskine Bowles and then...
Sure. So I worked for Erskine Bowles, and then Dave Richard, our new DHB director, hired me for the ARC of North Carolina. I was with the ARC in North Carolina working on IDD policy, but special education, healthcare, social determinants of health from 2007 for 9 years. And then I decided I wanted to branch out. I had been working with ARC on a lot of joint issues around personal care service, around rates. I was working with AARP around all of these issues with the Autism Society. And so I opened up Oak City Government Relations, my own company, and branched out. And I was very fortunate. Tim Rogers and Tracy Colbert came to me the day I opened up my doors and asked if I would work for ARC as their contract lobbyist. And I told them I would love to. And so I took that contract and was with them for 5 years, and then had the honor of coming inside as the interim vice president as Tracy Colbert moved into his new position with Maxim. And then in December, Tim and Judy offered me the full-time position inside of ARC, and I graciously accepted because it was a wonderful offer. But so in my career, I've worked on everything from Medicaid policy to social justice policy for people with disabilities. I've worked on education, special education, ending corporal punishment in our school system, ensuring that IEPs are full and robust and well done and follow the law. I've worked on Medicaid rates, increasing innovation waiver slots. I worked on the PHP transition. I worked on actually, I worked for WellCare as one of the individuals who helped write their PHP RFA, including all of the SDOH stuff that's inside of theirs. And so I've been very blessed and very fortunate to be able to work across multiple coalitions in my career and on multiple pieces of legislation, including our bill for advanced care planning. So
I was just about to get to that. So you gave us a great update the other day, but and I'm not asking you to reprise that, but what do you think about advanced care planning and why are you so passionate about this bill?
So I'm very passionate. So this is new to me in having to lobby it, but not new to me in having to discuss it. So one of the issues that is really critical for all of us with rare conditions is having very hard and very difficult conversations with our family members about what we want and how we want it to play out, and where the grace and respect that we want to be given if we cannot speak for ourselves in the future. So, and that's a very difficult conversation to have, right? So my husband, who's a psychiatrist, and we have this conversation all the time. As an individual with a rare condition, my doctors often don't know it. They've never seen it. I may have been 1 in 6 that they have come in contact with in a 30-year career.
Wow.
And in one case right now, one of my wonderful doctors, who's my neurologist, I am 1 of 4 in her 25-year career. And so you have to have this very real conversation about, not only does my husband have to speak for me, but I also want to speak for myself. And I want to give advanced care directives of what I want, what I don't want. So that if he can't do it, there is a living document and a living plan that can inform my 2 stepchildren, because we are unique in the fact that we know probably a lot more about what's going on with me than anyone else. So I just, and I feel that we need to make it easier. I feel that with the pandemic, the one thing that I've learned from the pandemic is there are a lot of things we can do. We can simplify processes for families making difficult conversations by making it easier to do it, because we have all of these tools at our capability that we may not have had before, from being able to do electronic signatures to being able to have these intimate conversations. And Zoom can be intimate with other family members to really express our concerns and what we want, and to have that last line of respect and dignity as we move forward in our life trajectory.
Wow, so beautifully said. Thank you. Can we get you to lead this charge? Oh, you are. I'm sorry.
So I have a question, Julia. I'm on not a singular mission, but have been on a mission a lot of my life about the importance of our helping people to be better spokespeople for themselves. And so, this morning when you said the word self-advocacy, I about jumped out of my chair. And that's because it's something that I'm so passionate about. How you've been doing this for a while. What we've got a gap there between how physicians and the medical system treats us and what we need. How do we, as a serious illness coalition, go about changing some of that?
Okay, so now you've hit on something that I'm super passionate about that I don't work on professionally. So one of the things, and for anyone who I just got done writing this capstone about how physicians and medical professionals view individuals with disabilities, right? With illness, with serious illness. And the fact that there is an undercurrent in our medical system that still exists today, where medical professionals automatically look at the life of an individual with a serious illness or a disability as, quote, less than, right? And we saw that with rationing and care across our system during the pandemic nationally, right? Not just North Carolina, but nationally, right down to something that Mary's very passionate about, that visitation portion, right? That you can basically take those rights away from someone who is seriously ill or disabled because they have less than rights. And so one of the things that I have been very passionate about in my own work personally is we need to really have a strong focus on the training of medical professionals from the highest level up all the way down to our direct care workers about the integrity and human rights that come with being disabled or seriously ill. We don't give up any of that. I still have my rights, even though I have a significant disability, right? Nothing changed that day when that ICD-10 code hit my field. And I think it takes those of us like myself and yourself and others to sit down with medical professionals and really start to break through that barrier of, why do you feel that way? Like an open discussion, not blaming them, but why does the medical community feel that they need to fix us, as opposed to work with us to achieve a level that is beneficial for us, and knowing that that level is going to be different for each person, right? So a perfect example, and I give this example often now because it just happened and it was great. So if you look at my ICD-10 codes and my medical chart, if you go into my electric health record and you see that I have scoliosis and asthma, and you see that I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and that I had a presumed stroke in September, and you see all of these things that are real and tangible. If you are a medical professional and you walk into the room, there is an excellent chance that what you think you're going to find on the other side of that door is someone who cannot advocate for themselves, cannot speak for themselves, an individual who may be living in poverty, an individual who may not know what they want. And so this happened with my doctor at Duke recently. It was my orthopedic surgeon, my foot surgeon. And he came in and I knew exactly what was going to happen because I've seen it before. He threw that door open and he had this set perception of what was on the other side. And I was on the other side. I had my hair done. I had my makeup on. I had a really cool sweater with a big old penguin and a mask that matched it. And he stopped and took 3 steps backwards, physically 3 steps backwards, because he had to readjust what he was thinking. We need to get doctors like that not to think that way. We need to work with our universities, with our medical communities, and we need to sit down and say, the EHR is to guide you on treatment, not to guide you about who's on the other side of the door.
Amen.
You know, the person on the other side of the door has a full life experience. And how do we recognize that life experience and start to break down those issues around what you think disability is, especially with this new generation? And I'm sorry, I know we're on time, but this new generation of individuals with disabilities, the disability community that's coming up now, okay, that community experienced something very different from my community. They have IDEA, they have IEPs, they have the Americans with Disabilities Act. These things didn't exist when I was born and being raised. They have technology that they are able to access and communicate and network together. And you're starting to see this really blossom in social media right now, right? You're seeing Crip the Vote. You're seeing more papers being written by people with disabilities. You're seeing books being published. You're seeing people with disabilities break through media also and be viewed as just a character in a show. We need to take all of that energy and we need to move it over into real advocacy around medical community and start now with the young doctors who are coming in because they've had kids with disabilities in their class their entire careers as students. And we need to start really working with them. And I would love to see a statewide initiative where we pull in the best medical schools that we have in our state. And we sit down and we have this robust and honest conversation that it's time to change the way we look at serious illness and disability. And it's about the person, really get down into that person centered and break down those barriers.
Wow.
And that was a lot. And I'm sorry.
No.
I didn't ask that question.
I love it that you preach.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding. Dr. Charlotte Sweeney, who has been with us from the beginning, she's a longtime friend and retired OBGYN and an English teacher. Ann Elmore, who's with the Secretary of State's office, Heather Burkhart with the Coalition on Aging, Karen Bullock, the head of
NC
State Social Work School. I'm sorry. Anyway, you know all the folks. Ken Deans with South Carolina and HSSC. Everybody is excited about this. I will say that Adams-Scheurich, Dr. Adams-Scheurich, who used to be the head of the NCIOM until last summer. He is now working with the AHEC across the state, and he wants to do some of the very things that you've just described with us. So we have an opportunity to take this story to health providers. That's one point that I want to just mention. So
Well, I would love to work with you on that, because there are a lot of, I mean, my 3 years at law school was really a lot of focus around this issue and around how do we break down those barriers. And also I think that there are a lot of very strong advocates out there who want to give this as a message to the medical community. And I think that that's critical.
that's amazing. That's great. So that's one thing that we need to really plan to do. And I see
I
Mary
see a
Lou.
lot of people asking if I'm running for office.
Yeah, right. That's what I was just
You
about
got
to
your
say.
stump speech done. So are you optimistic about both our legislation, but what is your pulse check? I'm asking a loaded question here about our legislature and its understanding of the health needs of our state.
In the next 3 minutes.
3 minutes. I can do this. So starting with our bill, I do think that we can move our bill through this session. I do believe that there is support for that on the House side. There was obviously support on the Senate side. What do I think about the legislature? Wow, that's a loaded question. So a few things I want to point out. The pandemic, for all that I can say that I wish I never lived through a pandemic, the one thing the pandemic did was really laser focus our legislature on healthcare. Now, does that mean that they're going to expand Medicaid? Absolutely not. They just said that. Does that mean that we don't continue to discuss the need for more robust healthcare for the state of North Carolina? Yeah, we sure do. And we need to talk about that Medicaid expansion, even though the current leadership in the House and Senate have said no. The governor is still supportive. More importantly, we are seeing more bills filed right now around rate increases to help recruit and retain high quality direct care support and private duty nursing than at any other time in our legislative history. And these bills have support. And the reason why they have support is because of the pandemic. When mom and dad can't get someone to come into their home to do personal care services because those individuals have to go home and take care of their children or their own loved ones because the entire system got upended, when policy comes to your dining room table, it becomes your responsibility. And I think for a lot of legislators, this issue, even though Mary Bethel has done amazing work in her career saying this, AARP has, y'all have, we have, but for the past 15 months, it's been sitting at your dining room table. Can't find anyone to come take care of mom and daddy, can't take care of grandma and grandpa, finding a difficulty having an innovation or CAPC slot, but we don't have anyone to really staff that slot, partially because the entire system was disrupted by the pandemic, but also partially because, let's stick with this one, kids all came home from school, right? And so if my job was to go to someone else's house to care for their loved one, because that's my passion, I now have my kids sitting in my living room and I have to take care of them. And so I had to give up something. And so the staffing crisis really was, came to a head, and now folks are taking it seriously. So yes, I do think we have a chance to get some of the rate increases, but it's more than rates and it's more than wages. And I think that's our next level of advocacy. How do we encourage and incentivize young people in high school to choose healthcare as a viable path where they get a good living wage, where they get good benefits, and where they have a pathway forward to something else, a nursing degree or going to med school or something else that they can have, because that's really what we have to work on next, right? We need to take care of the workforce we have, but we've got to put our heads together and get creative about how that next generation joins us, joins working with serious illness patients and families, and sees this as a lifetime profession.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Julia Adams-Scheurich, Vice President for Government Relations at OCC. Yeah, a lot of hand clapping there.
Thank you all.
We appreciate it. And
sure,
you're not done with us yet, but you are today. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.